Welcome to the BoozeFreeBabes podcast, where we help high-achieving women reframe their relationship with alcohol, rediscover their confidence, and step fully into their power. I'm your host, Ellen Frazier, a recovered perfectionist, mortgage maven, and founder of the BoozeFreeBabes community. Each week, we dive deep into inspiring conversations with women who are living boldly, brilliantly in their booze-free lives. Whether you're sober curious or fully alcohol-free, you're in the right place. Today, I'm joined by Andrea Meier, and it is my pleasure to introduce Andrea Meier, licensed professional counselor, licensed addiction counselor, researcher, author, speaker, and trainer. She's the owner and therapist at Andrea Meier LLC, Holistic Wellness Collective, located right here in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, and she brings 20 plus years of professional experience and 45 years of lived experience and expertise to our conversation today. Andrea, welcome, and thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me here. I'm super excited.
So tell us a little bit about your pathway into recovery. I picked up on the 45 years of lived experience, so I'm sure there's more to that story.
Oh, absolutely. I know it. What chapter would you like to start at, right?
We can work backwards. No.
We can work backwards. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I would say, mine started back, probably in the womb, to be quite honest. I'm from a family of origin that was pretty riddled with addiction and trauma and various mental health concerns, really intergenerational, lots of generations back. And so, yeah, I grew up in a pretty chaotic kind of family system. And I think when you're a kiddo, you don't get it. It's just the norm, right? It's just what you know. But I was always curious, what the hell's going on here? So knew from a pretty young age that, I wanted to help others. I wanted to dive deep, to learn, to understand. So
that past lived experience is what led you to go into this field.
Absolutely. It certainly carried into my adulthood also, I would have to say. But yeah, so, knew very young, and I didn't have a whole lot of support growing up to kind of talk through some hard stuff. And so, started off thinking I wanted to work with littles. But here I am working with pretty much the whole gamut of children to elders, and absolutely love what I do.
And so do you stay focused in the addiction and recovery field?
Yes. I think when I went to college, did the kind of typical psychology track, loved it, wasn't enough, went, and got my master's specifically in clinical mental health counseling. And unfortunately, a lot of those programs don't really do deep dives in addiction, which is rather unfortunate. It's kind of siloed there. But
Interesting.
yeah. But yeah, so sorry, I don't want to get lost in all the details, but it's been quite a ride. It's been quite a ride. That's what I got to say.
So is there like a particular moment or client story that affirmed that this was definitely your calling?
Yeah, I think probably graduate school, I would have to say. Like it just felt like you're learning all the theory, you're learning, all the kind of nitty gritties, but there was we have to do a lab in grad school when you're actually doing the therapy. And it was just so organic. It was like this, it's like this like kind of awakening, just being able to get into this groove with real people and talking about real problems. And simultaneously,
Parallel to your own story probably as well.
Absolutely. And kind of started getting my own therapy at that point too. And it was just, it was the momentum I needed. And I mean, there's lots of like touch points with individual clients too that just, kind of warm my heart and keep me motivated.
I love that. I think it's so
Yeah.
important that we give back, and it sounds like
Yeah.
you found that calling when you were in grad school.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, and, have pretty much worn all the different hats along the way. Probably taking on a little bit too much more than I should at moments. But love it. Love it.
Now, here's an interesting question. How do
Yeah.
you define addiction from a mental health standpoint? And has that understanding evolved over the years?
Yeah. Well, I think yes, it's certainly evolved, I think, over the years. I think I used to, look at addiction as more of like the medical kind of model, kind of genetic factors like vulnerabilities and family systems and so forth. But, I've done a lot of deep diving in trauma work, my own trauma work, clearly, but also working with some amazing folks, in the field here, and really, I don't know how familiar everybody is with what's called like internal family systems.
I heard you mention family systems a couple
Yeah,
times. So I was going to kind of lead into that. So I'd
yeah,
love to hear more about it. I'm fascinated by
yeah.
IFS.
Well, I think the kind of premise is that we've all got these like inner parts in us, and we're not talking like multiple personalities, but we've all got these various parts, and some of our parts are what we call like more wounded or vulnerable parts, and these tend to be younger parts that carry a lot of hurt, of feeling scared, feeling not good enough, unlovable, those kinds of directions, and typically form in childhood due to maybe family traumas, bullying, or whatever comes along there. But we also have what are called like protective parts, and we've got these little wounded protectors kind of come in at different ages to help protect the wounded, right? To protect those scars, to protect the pain, the hurt, and you know, addiction, substance use is a form of a protector, right? It's meant to soothe us. It's meant to protect us, to shield us from feeling that pain.
I had to write that down because I love that. Because, we talk about like addiction was the solution, right? Or
Yes.
our substance use was the solution to our pain. And
Yeah.
so, what you just said about addiction being a protector, please, let's dive
Yes.
into that a little bit more.
Yes. Right. And so it serves a purpose, right? Like and I think, in the internal family systems approach is that we want to give that part some compassion, right? It was trying to help us. And oftentimes when we start like experimenting, with drinking or, drugs or whatever, maybe in adolescence, it's like, damn, that helps. That helps me get through my day. That helps me tune out whatever's going on at home. It helps me focus. It helps me do the things I, need to do.
Or it's a healthy distraction,
It's
right?
or a distraction, right? It can be soothing. It can be distracting. It can help us just avoid,
Or
right?
maybe not a healthy distraction, but I think a
Well, and I'm
distraction,
not saying it's healthy, right? I'm not saying,
but it was a solution.
but it was a solution, right? You know, and so like we want to have some compassion for like what that part is trying to do, right? How it's trying to shield us. But part of it, or in the parts work is like leaning into like the higher self, right? The higher self is the one that helps keeps this internal family system cohesive and working together, right? And so part of the higher self is being able to sort of nurture these wounded parts and protector parts, and for these parts to trust you, right? That you'll be able to take care of yourself, right? In maybe healthier, more productive ways. And so when I think of like, you know, addiction. I don't think, we don't just wake up and, decide to, have a drink and kind of go down that spiraling rabbit hole. This is something that sort of evolves. It kind of grows up within us. Um, and
I
we're
love
trying
that.
to
It's
just kind of befriend it, is what we're trying to do.
evolving over time. And if I'm
Mhm.
hearing you correctly, basically you're saying loving all those pieces of us, even the part that
All the
had to be the
parts.
protective
Yes,
or the
absolutely.
caretaker or the person that cleaned up the mess or
Yes.
the person that created trauma to get attention, like all of these different, and I'm probably calling myself out here on that, but you know,
Aren't we all? Yes.
for these different personas of our
Uh-huh.
own self, right? That show up in these different moments of our life. And I had a conversation with somebody and we were talking about how it's like you sit at a conference room and it's all versions of you.
Oh,
And when
yeah.
you can bring all of those personas together at the same table and love future, past, present, darkness, light, depth, all of it, right?
Yes. And that's like that cohesive internal family system we're trying to nurture, right? Because sometimes they start acting out in there, right? And there's something very magical about those moments.
That is fascinating. I've wanted to dive deeper into IFS, so I'm so glad that you brought it up on this
Yes.
conversation.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the work that I also, my focus in the work that I do is primarily addiction and trauma. And I have to say, in all of my, my studies, my work, my clinical practice, these more experiential approaches like IFS and EMDR, and as well as grounding, like helping to soothe that nervous system, have profound impact, and not just on, our use, but just really globally, big picture of health, functioning, confidence.
And I want to take a deeper dive too into EMDR because I'm also
Yeah.
fascinated by that. And just a quick little backstory on my own personal journey. I chose Psych K as my modality for
Okay.
subconscious integrative change. And so I feel like that modality aligns really well with EMDR. So I think that I have an understanding of how it works and
Yeah.
kind of how that flows through. And the biggest thing that I noticed in my own journey is that it was like it created a ripple effect
Hmm.
throughout my whole life. Like as I came to a deeper understanding of my own self, then and I reframed the way that I believed certain situations happened or the damage or collateral from a specific situation, reframing that, I feel like
Absolutely.
created a ripple effect throughout my life and even what I believe and how I believe about different things that happened in my life, which is wild.
Isn't it wild? It's amazing. It's amazing what can open up, right? And that, similar to like EMDR, like when we are able to do some of that healing, maybe on an individual, like traumatic level, that that spreads, right? It's not just limited to the one channel or one target you're working on, right? There's this magical, permeation that happens in other parts of life. um, and that's the thing, like we carry a lot of like our those old wounds with us. We carry a lot of those like kind of like old narratives, and part of it is being able to kind of like reclaim, kind of rewrite some of the narrative. It's really amazing. Yeah, what I
Thank
get to
you.
do, I'm very lucky.
It's like thank you for being the version
Hmm.
that you had to be to carry you through that moment in time, and
Yeah.
it's okay to let that armor down and to
Yeah.
choose to move forward in a new way. Is that kind of what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, absolutely. And I have to say that like in my 30s, I hit a bit of a dark moment, or couple years, in EMDR, IFS, like in some of these, again, more experiential, kind of deeper subconscious work, was a complete game changer. Not even just like on a personal healing level, but just in the scope of like the work and how I saw, right, how I saw clients. And so, everything, that I talk about, everything I do with folks is really based on, a lot of that lived experience.
Wow, that's fascinating. I think,
Yeah.
do you feel like in this role specifically, I feel, a lot of times I feel like people that are going into the mental health space, there's
Yeah.
usually some sort of driver behind that, right?
Yeah.
And do you feel like that is like that's what took that career path in that direction was because of your lived experience, like you said?
Oh, absolutely. Again, family of origin growing up, but then, also, I mean, definitely have, faced my own, PTSD as a result of that, have definitely faced my own darkness with alcohol, and, you know, uh, so it's not just the textbooks and the classes. It's, I only do the things that I know that truly work. Um,
I also have a personal question. Do you
Absolutely.
feel like your own journey with your relationship with alcohol, was that in alignment with the mental health approach that you took, or did that evolve as you brought in like EMDR and IFS?
To
I
be
guess what I'm curious about is your own journey aligned with the
Yeah,
clientele that you are working with. How did that mash up?
match up. Yeah, no, I think, pretty much I've been, really in the kind of addiction space, like pretty much since my 20s. And so I think so simultaneously, I think, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but um, I've always known that addiction was going to be part of my journey as far as my career path. And I think as part of my own kind of learning about myself, like one of my protectors was like perfectionism, right? Was go, go, go. And so I went, and I did all the things in my career, and I burnt out in my 30s, pretty hard. And alcohol turned on me at that point, as also another protector trying to come in. And you know it was a dark time. It was a really dark time, and I'm so grateful for having the tools that I had, but for how much I've grown even since. It's truly a gift. Truly.
I feel like we speak a similar language when you talk about yourself being a perfectionist and always on the go. I find myself in that pattern
Yes.
also. And, sometimes it's like, okay, we're running a million miles a minute, and maybe we just need to slow down for a second,
Yes.
ground, reduce the stress on our nervous system,
Yeah.
and just recalibrate, right?
Yes. And I say that every day, and I remind myself every day. And I think, you know, not to stereotype, but I think women in particular, like, wear, kind of shoulder a big burden of, like, all the responsibilities from, being a mom to a career to, kind of making all the magic work for a family, and, all of the things. And we forget about ourselves, right? We go kind of bottom of the priority list. And it's such a gift to be able to learn how to, like, tolerate sitting with ourselves, doing those grounding moments.
That is a gift. And sometimes it's easier than others. I will say that.
Oh, for sure. I'm not saying it's always easy.
In the middle of an emotional wave, if you tell me to like stop and go ground, I'd probably be like, really? Okay, give me a minute. Let me get this off my chest first, and
Yeah,
then maybe I can
and then
revisit
I'll
this.
think about it.
Can you, would you say that you have like a morning, I like the word ritual over routine, but either one,
Yes.
routine or ritual that you have for grounding and getting into your body? And can you
Oh,
walk us through that?
Do I? Do I? I say I use those terms, rituals and routines, with just all my loved ones, all my clients, myself. And those morning ones, I call them like the bookends, right? Like how we start our day, how we wind our day down, and are so critical. And so for me, people think I'm crazy, or my husband thinks I'm crazy, but I get up, religiously at 5 a.m. every morning, right? Weekends, weekdays, because that's the quiet. That's like really the only quiet I can find in 24 hours. So,
Take that. Take
yes.
that time.
But I get up and I have a slow start, right? I get my coffee. I have a place that I sit every morning to to just practice some of that breathing, to do some meditation. I'm a big fan of somatic work. I'm a big fan of what's called PMR, like progressive muscle relaxation. I store a lot in my body. But I am very routined when it comes to that morning. I'm also similarly in my evening, very routined as far as how I help close out the day. Um,
Will you walk us through that too?
Absolutely. And one more thing I wanted to say for the morning, though, is I always set an intention, right? An intention in the morning of like how I want to look at my day. It's kind of like I'm setting the filter, right, of what's to come ahead. My evening routine is again pretty ritualized. I do my skincare, right? And for me, that's self care. It's soothing. I smell the things. I take my time. I feel the warm water on my face, right? I put on my jammies. I put on my jammies, but they have to be like soft. They have to be cozy. They have to, they have to nurture me.
I love
um,
that.
I light a candle. I do some reading in bed, and I always end with some gratitude, right? Some gratitude and I always say three things, right? Three things I'm proud of, or that went well today, or how I saw myself grow or show up. And usually, not gonna lie, usually I pass right out. So,
From that full day that you had, right?
yes, yeah.
I love that. I've just started doing more of a ritual at night, and
Hmm.
I think it makes a difference. And I'll share this just real
Please
quick
do.
story. I've had like something that I'm struggling with, right? That I'm trying to work through and work related. And so this morning I woke up and it was the first thing that came to my mind. And I was like in bed and I woke up and I went to grab my phone and just start hammering away at notes so that way I knew what I needed to tackle later. And I paused in that moment because I made a decision, a conscious decision in that moment that that is not how I wanted to start
Good
today
for you.
because obviously I've got, this interview with you and I didn't want to carry that funky energy into this conversation. And
Hmm.
so it's not something that I catch all the time, but I've noticed that I'm starting to catch it more often.
Yeah,
And wow, what a
good for
significant
you.
change that makes, right?
It's huge. And even just taking a few minutes again in the morning, right? It doesn't these rituals and routines don't have to be hours. They don't have to be, a big time, kind of suck. But even a few minutes can make a huge difference. And in general, too, checking in with yourself around like your nervous system, right? I think about it like this elevator or like a thermostat: green, yellow, orange, red. It's like getting that temperature read. Where am I? Right? Anything orange, red, ooh, get some ice packs or something to help shock that back down. Um, but I don't think we do that enough. Also, I don't think we check in with ourselves enough. Right? We usually wait until we find ourselves kind of in a pickle. Right? That I'm overwhelmed, I'm burnt out, or I'm leaning back into kind of comfy habits or whatever else.
And then it's like a back paddle upstream against the current or tide to
Yeah,
try to get back into our bodies and regulating our nervous system. At least that's how I feel like it is for me anyway.
it is for me. Absolutely.
And so in those intense moments, first of all, let me just comment on the thermometer
Yeah.
analogy. I don't know why I haven't like that's brilliant. It
Mhm.
really is. And just my own like temperature, like I can
Temperature check.
feel it like creeping up into my shoulders, neck, and head. And
Yes.
so using that analogy, and I feel like I just want to create a little stick person of Ellen and put it next to a thermometer and like color it in. So that way I know because I can
Yeah.
feel it like rise up in my body, right?
Absolutely. And for some folks, I have them like put, like, you can, Google a thermometer, right? Or get a magnet or something. And just like have it visual. Like, where am I? Right.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
that is some yummy stuff. I really like that. Thank you.
yeah.
I'm seriously I'm gonna create a little
Uh-huh.
stick figure of Ellen and do a thermometer and just have that as the visual for me because that really helps. Because where I find that I struggle is like, I'm okay if I'm like to right here, but once I get that tipping point, then it takes me a minute to come back down. And
Yes.
I just, I'm also experiencing perimenopause right now too. So it's like, how much of this is in
Yeah.
my body and is like biometrics or chemistry and how much of it is what's in between my ears,
Right.
right?
Absolutely. And it could be a multitude of factors, right? But the nervous system is there, like, for a reason. It's like meant to tell us there's a threat, right? And it hits the amygdala, right? But the thing is, there's not always a lion, right? But the nervous system and the amygdala is like, run, run. In those moments, I call it the hijack, right? Like when we get to that kind of like dark orange red zone, that's like a hijack. And in those moments, like sometimes screw breathing, screw like, my namaste, like I can't get there. Those are the moments you want to, like, you want to see what's behind my back. It's an ice pack.
Oh, I love that.
So in those moments, you put an ice pack base of your neck or over your eyes where it hits this pressure point here. You get some like real strong candy, like a strong mint or spice. You get like a nice like aromatherapy smell. Like you you're trying to like do a quick snap, right? There's no rationalizing when you're in those states. And I'll send you some tips and tricks.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm picking up on here is that you're saying let's attack those senses,
Yes.
our touch from the cold or the
Yeah.
temperature control, the
Yes.
aromatherapy is our
Yes.
smell,
Yes. And in
hard
general, we
candy,
want
which
like
is our taste.
strong things in those. Like we want like something kind of, a little potentially, like, ice can feel a little harsh at times, right? And it's like we're just trying to do that quick snap. Bring it down a little bit so then I can get to the breathing. Then I can get to go take that walk, right?
I love the ice pack trick because I do cold showers and
Yep.
sometimes you can't like if I'm pissed off in the middle of the day, I can't just stop my day and go hop in a cold shower because I'm
No,
pissed.
no, but
Right?
you can keep some ice packs in the freezer.
I'm hot anyway, so ice is
And it
great.
helps with the perimenopause too.
That is some fantastic tips. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for that. I
of
really, really
course.
appreciate it. And I'd love for you to send us some stuff and we'll definitely post that
Absolutely.
out in the community.
Absolutely.
So tell us how we can find you. Give
Yeah,
us I know Andrea Meier LLC.com is your website. Will you spell
it
that
is.
for us?
Yes, AndreaMeier LLC .com.
Thank you. I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that you spelled the last name because I didn't want people to automatically think that it was spelled
Yeah, there's a
differently.
lot of
So thank you.
different, I hear a lot of different spellings and pronunciations. So,
So everything that we can find about your business and how to
yes.
schedule with you, we can find on the website.
Absolutely. You can also, follow and like us on Facebook and Instagram, same Andrea Meyer LLC. And I got a team of other holistic integrative therapists here as well, that I would love y'all to check out. All kind of functioning under the same umbrella. So,
That's
um,
fascinating. That's so
yeah,
great.
yeah,
That's very exciting. Well, thank you so much for being on the show
Of
today. Is there
course.
any last minute tidbits that you want to drop for us? Or
Yeah.
that ice pack one was pretty strong.
Yeah, literally, yeah. No, and feel free to reach out. We do offer free consultations. So, anybody wants to chat, check in, message, feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Andrea. We just appreciate everything that you're doing for the community, and
Thank
we
you.
appreciate your time today. And thank you for dropping so many awesome nuggets with us. I'll
Yeah,
make sure that we get those out when we
perfect.
post the episode, and I'll also make sure that we share that in the Booze Free Babes Facebook group. So, shout out to the Booze Free Babes Facebook group. If you're not in it already, please feel free to join it and follow along on our journey. We're also available on Instagram, the Booze Free Babes podcast, and available on a full playback for YouTube. So everywhere you watch podcasts, or listen to podcasts and watch it on YouTube. All right, Andrea, thank you so much for being here
Thank
today. We really
you.
appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye bye.